Welcome to another Zoom meeting and podcast of Here's Tom with the Weather. And here's the preamble. Here's Tom with the Weather is a podcast that examines recovery from every angle, a safe space for open-minded discussion about those issues or perhaps even taboos that affect recovery. These are the topics often whispered about in church basements or grumbled over by the bleeding deacons and the big book thumpers that are verboten or scoffed at. We want to give free voice to those subjects that get alky witches and warlocks burned at the stake, or at the very least, hounded out of their home groups. And a quick aside, just to remind you that we run this account for free, the Zoom account for free. So we welcome any contributions via PayPal at gilwriter@hotmail.co.uk. That's Gilwriter, GILWRITER @hotmail.co.uk. Anyway, so today, very excited about this one. We always seem to kick up a bit of a storm, but we're discussing the leaflet, A Newcomer Asks. Now, a little bit of background. This British pamphlet was brought to the USA by a member who passed it around. And then in 1980, the USA-Canada General Service adopted and adapted it, making it available in English, French, and Spanish. The spirit of the pamphlet shows a tolerant and liberal approach to AA. Well, that's to my thinking anyway. And this is an approach that some may argue has given way to a certain amount of authoritativeness and rigidity. Anyway, let's have a chat about it. Let's talk about it in an open, honest, and a grown-up way. And with that, my friend Josie, my co-host Josie, has got a bit of a presentation. Over to you, mate.
And then we'll talk about it in a grown-up way.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. It is good to see you. I dug this pamphlet out. I was asked to give a talk, and I kind of needed it to sort of fact check my own memory, because I would talk about when I got sober in the 70s and how there weren't any big book studies in Montreal where I got sober. The book was always on the chair table by the podium. So you knew you were in an AA meeting because the third edition blue big book was there. It just came out, right? That was all very exciting. So they had a new prop. And I'm sure people read it, but I didn't know who, because nobody quoted it. Nobody, knew chapter and verse of the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And no one said the steps are in order for a reason, or had a big book sponsor, any of those things. And, I say that to people who got sober this century, and they go, "Are you sure about that?" We heard that's how they did it way back when. And I started wondering. And this pamphlet actually sort of reminds me of that era, because it was, as was said, brought to us in 1980. So it sort of reflects the mood of at least 2/3 of the General Service Conference in Canada and the US said, "Yep, this is AA," and voted to adopt it. So I'm going to screen share a few things here, and hopefully everyone can sort of follow along with this. Like, I've never actually done this presentation. I put it together this morning. So, only amateurs, don't rehearse, but, we're all amateurs in AA. So, where do I want to start? Let's just take a look at some of the ways it describes AA. This leaflet is intended for people approaching AA, and it's not expertise. These are questions which were in our minds when we first approached AA. So it's one alcoholic talking to another. Am I an alcoholic? If you repeatedly drink more than you intended, if you get into trouble, or if you have memory lapses when you drink, you may be an alcoholic. Only you can decide. No one in AA will tell you whether you are or you are not. Never heard the people use the term a real alcoholic, or if you get sober that way, you're just a heavy social drinker who thinks they're a real alcoholic. Never heard that kind of talk. Everyone decided for themselves. What can you do? Seek help. AA can help. What is Alcoholics Anonymous? They kind of talk about the preamble there. If I go to meetings, am I committing myself to anything? No, we don't keep membership files or attendance records. You don't have to reveal anything about yourself. You don't even have to show your face anymore in an AA meeting. You can use, you can disguise yourself with filters in Zoom. No one will bother you if you don't want to come back. What happens if I meet people I know? Well, they'll be there for the same reasons you are. Is that big enough for everybody? Is that better? They will not disclose your identity to outsiders. At AA, you retain as much anonymity as you wish. That is one of the reasons we call ourselves Alcoholics Anonymous. So again, anonymity is a personal decision that you can't violate a tradition when it's a personal decision. You're just making an educated choice for yourself. But we hear about groups or people who are violating the traditions. The 72nd General Service Conference in Canada and the US is for putting forward a questionnaire to send out to members, 24 questions about anonymity and social media. And I saw a presentation on that this weekend, and it really seemed like it was, kind of, well, you better not this, and you can do anything you want, but we really think you should consider this. And I felt that it was deaf to Generation Z. When I came into AA, if I was the age I was then, now I'd be Generation Z. That's younger than millennials, the people who are 21 and younger. And, I don't think that the questions they ask are the type of, even the way people that age would talk, who grew up with social media. There was Facebook when they were born, or at least ICQ, and then MySpace and whatever else. And I just wonder about that. So what happens at an AA meeting? They take several forms. But all meetings, you'll find alcoholics talking about what drinking did to their lives and personalities, what actions they took to help themselves, and how they're living their lives today. How can this help with my problem? We in AA know what it's like to be addicted to alcohol and to be unable to keep promises made to others and ourselves. And we will stop we will, and ourselves, that we will stop drinking. We are not professional therapists. Our only qualification for helping others in recovery is that we've stopped drinking ourselves. And problem drinkers coming to us know that recovery is possible because they see people have done it. Why do AAs keep going if they're cured? Well, in AA, we don't believe there's such thing as a cure for alcoholism. We can never return to normal drinking, and our ability to stay away from alcohol depends on maintaining our physical, mental, and spiritual health. This we can achieve by going to meetings regularly, putting into practice what we've learned. In addition, we find it helps us to stay sober by helping other alcoholics. How do I join? You're a member if you say you are. How much does it cost? We pass the hat. You never have to contribute. Is AA a religious organization? No, we're not allied with any religious organization. But there's a lot of talk about God, isn't there? And I love the way they answered this. The majority of AA members believe that we have found a solution to our drinking, not through individual willpower, but through a power greater than ourselves. However, there's three ways people define that. Many people call it God. They make no apologies about it. To others, it's the AA group. You know, that old Jim Burwell, GOD stands for group of drunks. And third, many people don't believe in it at all. They don't have a higher power. There is room in AA for people of all shades of belief and non-belief. And I just want to, I think, I'm going to take a look deeper into the days of my early sobriety. There's another pamphlet that used to come out every 3 years called the Membership Survey. And it's a triennial survey. And the latest one was 2007, as you can see here. And I want to look at the ones they did at the time I got sober. So in 1977, 1% of AA members were under the age of 21. And in my early years of sobriety, that just kept growing. It grew to 3%. And it was that way through till 89. And the 31 and unders, well, they grew to 20%. So 1 in 5 people were in their 20s or teens as members of AA. And people that were 51 years and older in my early sobriety, that number started to decline from almost 40% to about 20%. Women were growing in AA population. This is picture from the 1987 Toronto Young People's Conference, which was called Stark Raving Sober. This was Friday night with the Sober Skid Row. And I have, for anonymity's purposes, I have not blacked out, but yellowed out a couple of people in the band. This is me playing guitar, and this is our band Skid Row at the Toronto Young People's Conference. Harvey, finding a sober drummer is always difficult, but we did. And this is, if you want to get to know me better, the mother of my firstborn, our son Jesse. And you can see I didn't yellow out Bill's eyes over here, but I have the other members of the band. And this was our idea of how to get sober. Well, let's play some music together. Let's dance. Let's have fun. Let's have drum circles, that sort of thing. We would play Pretenders music and Talking Heads. I think I can see by the chord position we were playing When Doves Cry at that point by Prince. And we'd play Aretha Franklin and the Trogs and Jefferson Airplane. And sometimes we'd play some of Kathy's originals. In fact, she wrote a song called Rebellion Dogs, which I used as the name of my publishing company. So that was, this was a typical AA gathering. Some other sort of facts and figures for that time: less and less people, when you see this, how people found AA, were getting sober by the 12-step call. That number was going down, 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 and more people were coming to AA from rehabs or from counseling. The distribution of sobriety back then, again, in 1977, I would get my 1-year medallion, and I would be in this solid line here, 40% of people in AA. Just below that were people sober less than me, and just over 20% were people sober 5 years or more, and that started increasing. Also addicted to drugs was a question that used to be asked in the triennial survey, and that number was less than 20 when I joined, and it just kept going up and up and up. So what did we do to accommodate this changing AA? We stopped asking the question. And what we did in response to some members' reaction to that is we came out with the blue card, which stated that in an AA meeting, There's only one requirement for membership, a desire to stop drinking. And we ask that all those who participate confine their discussion to their problems with alcohol. So more and more people were dually addicted. It was the time of cocaine and freebasing and everything else under the sun. And people coming and talking about what they heard in treatment centers. And some of AA found this disturbing, and they wanted to put in corrective measures. And as you can see, that line kept going up after they did this. What else do I have here? This is a little bit about AA today. So this is the 2014 survey. There's been a number of reasons why we stopped doing the triennial survey, and there's a motion to return to it. But the average member is now 50 years old. Only 12% of people are under 30. And there are more people 60 years and older than there are in their 30s, in their 20s and teens. And the average amount of sobriety has gone up. Remember, it was like under 4 years when I got here, and it'd be about 10 years now. Now, in one way, that's good. And in one way, that talks about a maturing organization, because we haven't added new members to AA. Well, new people have come, but they've taken up the place of someone who either died or said, I've had enough of this, and moved on. Because by our own record-keeping means, in the 90s, we reached 2 million, and we'd only been 500,000 when they started doing those surveys. So we doubled in size twice, and then we flatlined plus or minus 10% of 2 million, according to AA's own record keeping, from 1991 until now. And so in that time, the average age has gotten older, and the average length of sobriety has gotten older. When I got sober, it was newcomers helping newcomers, because nobody talked about my sponsor in the late 70s, because there was nobody sober, very few people sober 20 years and plus. Let's see what else. Now, this is an interesting time in AA history, looking at the more liberal side. And now, this isn't to say people who are atheists or agnostics are the liberals, and people who love their big book are the conservatives. That's not necessarily so. There are plenty of people who believe in God that are very open-minded, and plenty of people who are agnostic or atheists that are very rigid and conservative. But in 2009, I'm going to use this time because there was a change to our pamphlet, A Newcomer Asks, in 2009. The number of agnostic atheist meetings had doubled from the turn of the century, and it would start increasing dramatically. There was under 100, and this takes us up to sort of the Zoom period, and we're probably over 1,000 meetings. This actually shows, how long it took to get to 500. But from 50 to, it took a lot longer to get from 5 to 50 than it took to get from 50 to 500. And what else was going on in this 2009? So here, the AA World Convention, which happens every 5 years, from 1990, they started adding a We Agnostics pamphlet, not pamphlet, I'm sorry, but a panel at the convention with atheists and agnostics speaking, and that happened every 5 years and will continue to. We started having our own secular AA convention in 2014, and that created a boom. And then we did it again in 2018. This was in Santa Monica. Then we were in Austin, Texas. In 2018, we were in Toronto. In 2020, we were supposed to be in Washington, D.C. That's been rescheduled twice. We're hoping to be there the last weekend of October. But something else was going on too. So let's go back to our friendly neighborhood newcomer. So what am I looking for? So here we go. This is P24. Okay, and a newcomer. Okay, so there's these questions. And if you're looking at the British pamphlet, you'll see it has these 4 answers to this question. How would you advise a newcomer today? And it'll say, stay away from the first drink, attend AA meetings regularly, seek out people in AA who have successfully stayed sober for some time, try to put into practice AA's program of recovery. Now, does that sound like the sort of AA you would suggest today? I think so. But in 2009, this isn't in the UK pamphlet, but in the rest of the world, they added obtain and study the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's kind of a yin and a yang, right? Like, and I'm all for that, you know, if that's going to help you. At least everybody should read it. Whether they only go to big book meetings or they read it for historical context is whatever suits the individual. But while this sort of very liberal, agnostic, atheist, free thinkers, anything goes, kumbaya kind of approach was going on, also a growing faction was this back to basics, sort of cocaine anonymous, kind of one big book, let's muck it, get out your color markers, we're going to get you sober type of thing. And that happened in 2009. And so I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong, but I'm just giving you sort of a short timeline of what happened. And I just want to close with this, because like I really am not saying one way's better or one way's the other. This is from Thich Nhat Hanh, who said,
I think you've frozen there, Joe, or is it me?
when you plant lettuce, check 1, check 2.
You're good. You're good.
Good. Okay. So this is like the last slide anyway. When you plant lettuce and if it doesn't grow well, don't blame the lettuce. Look for reasons why it's not doing well. It may need fertilizer or water or less sun. You never blame the lettuce. Yet if you have problems with our friends or our families, we blame the other person. But if we know how to take care of them, they will grow well, like the lettuce. Blaming has no positive effect at all, nor does trying to persuade or use reason and argument. Now I go, what? I love reason and argument. That is my experience. No blame, no reasoning, no argument, just understanding. If you understand, and if you show that you understand, you can love, and the situation will change. So I say all this just not from I support one way of recovery over another, but the better we can understand each other and tolerate each other and make space for each other, I think the more AA is going to grow, in my own opinion. And we're not on a membership drive. We don't need to be bigger to be better. But anyway, I just thought I would try that out on y'all, and I would love to get your feedback. Just out of curiosity, just with the raise hands thing, how many people here are in their first year of sobriety? How about 1 year to 5 year? Okay, 1 year to 5 year?
2.
Okay. 5 years to 10 years.
1. I think Bob R's got his hand up.
Okay, thank you.
And Clifford, that's 2.
Okay, and over 10 years? So like, look at the crowd, right? We're all old fogies. And so again, the number of people 20 years or sober more in 1980 was probably less than 3% of AA. And we're in a room where we may be the majority, right? So these are the types of things that tends to alter a society. Do we get more liberal or more conservative as we get older? Right? Most people get more conservative as they get older. So more of AA stewardship is in the hands of the gray hairs than it is of the young and the restless. So I would love to hear what others have to say about their AA experience. And feel free to fact check me and call bullshit if that's your inclination. Dave, your thoughts?
Well, there's a few things I wanted to. We had a conversation probably a year ago with regards to the growth of AA during lockdown, and I was just wondering whether you had those figures to mind, because I think those are very interesting in terms of AA by hook or by crook or by accident actually starting to find a new audience through technology, and that particular generation. I don't know, what are we up to? X, Y, Z? We're going back to A now? I don't know.
I think we're in the millennial era of AA, because when we got the 2001 numbers comparing to 2000, membership had grown in the first year of the pandemic. We're still waiting. I have not yet seen the numbers from January 2022. But I would be curious. I think AA is doing well. I think it is thriving. I know George Koob, who's the head of the NIAAA. He's like the Fauci of addiction research in the United States. He was saying in a presentation to people in treatment that AA, he was actually a speaker at the Secular AA conference in 2020. AA, we were still trying to figure out what to do and how to reach people in need. They were putting on meetings all over the world and maybe reaching more alcoholics than they ever had before. So it seems that we are. The way we've adapted the preamble suggests a new, softer AA possibly, although there is some blowback on that as well. So
really,
yes, there is an urge from some members to slow down. This is cancel culture, right? It always said men and women. It's always got to say men and women. You liberals in New York, you're trying to tell us how to do AA. And that people can use the old preamble if they want to do that in their home group. That is everyone's right. But there is some blowback on that, and
yes.
But it's getting a whole bunch of people engaged in the AA decision-making process who were just doing their own thing. They said, "Why didn't you tell us you were doing this?" Well, it was a 4-year process.
Yeah, of course. And I found it really interesting. In the leaflet, and I haven't read that leaflet actually since I got sober in the UK. So, and I remember reading that leaflet, and those was it if the 3 points that you said, particularly that about a higher power, in terms of how that's defined, and just looking at that then really made it very clear to me. I think that was one of the appeals for me when I did come in. It was that it was of your own making, and be that the group or whatever your concept of God is, or you don't have one, and I think that's, for me, is probably the starkest I've actually seen it put into printed words since I came into AA. And I wonder about the Zoom thing. Going back to that, the Zoom thing is that where the dust really hasn't settled yet in terms of how that's being digested by people who are coming in. I mean, the advent of the Zoom baby era is phenomenal. And John the camera will tell you as well, and all of us have seen an influx of women. I mean, there's more women coming into AA, I think, now than
younger, I believe,
and younger, which is phenomenal. But that hasn't been by design. That has been purely by, I think, by necessity and by the coincidental rise of Zoom and Skype and things like that, I would think.
Yeah. And there is a whole percentage of AA that aren't represented in this conversation we're having today, who just can't wait to get back to their face-to-face meeting, or they've gone back to their face-to-face meeting and closed their Zoom meeting. And I understand that this medium doesn't serve everybody, but I think of it as a yes and. Go back to face-to-face meetings and have Zoom. And they're going to have two areas added to the general service conference that are no brick and mortar meetings. I don't know how they'll divide those two areas up, west, east, or what they're going to do. But yeah, there is an online intergroup, and I think AA is going to find a way to embrace the 21st century.
I think just finally, because I know we've got a couple of hands up there, Joe, as well, but I'm intrigued about this survey that's been sent out. I got sent one today or yesterday, I think it was, the new survey with regards to things like social media. And this is only my opinion, but it seems to me that it strikes me that it was coming from a place of people who aren't au fait with social media or with technology. And it was almost like, are you comfortable with this technology thing, basically saying that, and is your anonymity safe? And I think that's sort of opening up again that whole, they're singing to the choir, I think, or they're preaching to the choir, is that you're basically saying, I think and they aren't coming from a place of, for me, they aren't coming from a place of anonymity and discussing and opening that, because to my mind, anonymity is, I'm not anonymous to anyone in this room because we're all in recovery. Everyone probably knows my second name and where I am, so that doesn't bother me. For me, it's about anonymity on people who are outside AA. I don't know, but I might be wrong.
Exactly. I'll just say this, and then I'd love to hear what other people have to say too, is that I don't think these questions that are being asked are the questions someone who was 25 years old would ask, because I don't think they see Facebook as like being on the BBC. I mean, they're only talking to their network on Facebook or on YouTube or on their podcast. They don't see that as putting a full page ad in the paper saying, I'm in AA, you should be too, right? They're not speaking for AA, they're just speaking to their friends. In the same way we would in a coffee shop, say, look at this book I bought, and it might be an AA book, or look at my shiny medallion. I just got my 25-year. We might do that in a restaurant. Other people around might see, but we don't even worry about that. They're not paying attention to us. And that's the millennials' approach and younger to social media, where we treat it the same as being on CNN. And so I think that's going to be a factor going forward. And I say, let the millennials run the program, and we'll follow their lead. I mean, we're in their medium. Let's
absolutely. It's going to happen by hook or by crook. So do you want to?
Yeah.
Patrice, do you want to come in and make us say something here? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At the beginning of the pandemic, I, who am not a millennial, landed up getting onto Zoom and having the time to do the research in order to develop that, and took the meetings I was going to onto Zoom. We now hybridize that. I take my computer into the meeting room, and some people come in on Zoom through their computers, and others are in the room.
Right.
And some meetings we're seeing half and half. And yes, I'm only talking, at 25 to 35 people in the meeting, but I found that the ones coming in are coming in on Zoom because of health reasons. They're the older members who don't want to be exposed or can no longer make the drive to the meeting conveniently, or it's the millennials are the ones that are traveling. They're in the truck, and zooming in and doing a meeting while they're at work, so to speak, or, didn't get home from work in time to make it back out to the meetings, but they'll sign in real quick and be there. That I've said I will continue doing it that way as long as it's being used. If it's not being utilized, I do have one meeting that our secretary had to zoom in because of weather and transportation, where now that the weather has kind of broken here, he's coming in person. But it's like sometimes we get 1 or 2 sign in on Zoom and other times we get none. I wait until at least halfway through the meeting before I close out the room on Zoom, because of the latecomers. But I kind of feel that it's here to stay because of the convenience. And because of, like that, the young moms who don't have daycare or night care for their kids, to come to a meeting after work, but they can hide out in, their bedroom for an hour and, participate via Zoom.
Which may speak to one of the points David made, right, about the increase in sort of female participation in Zoom meetings, right?
Yeah.
I knew one who lived on the East Coast, went to West Coast meetings because their baby was asleep by 9 o'clock. So they could, go to a later meeting.
Yep.
Thank you, Patrice. Thanks, Patrice.
Thanks.
Who's up? Kelly?
Yeah.
You have to unmute there, mate. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I got it. Hey, everybody. It's Kelly, alcoholic. I agree with everything that Patrice just said. I just finished working for a large corporation. In all of our meetings, I supported a division of our company that was, 2,000 kilometers away from where I worked. For 5 years, I never met any of them in person. 1 or 2 came up to my office. That was it. It's a great way to run a corporation in a meeting. And I believe last week I kind of mentioned that AA is a subset of society. So why wouldn't we adopt things that are working in the corporate world to make it more efficient? There's a lot of reasons people can't go in person. Today, on the 28th of March here, we had a snowstorm this morning. A lot of people may not go to our meeting tonight because of weather. But if it was also streamed, more people might show up. I came into AA in the era of Zoom. I do both, and both have their pluses and minuses. So I think that whoever's asking the questions, they're just wasting a bunch of time. They should just say, look, we'll adopt a joint way of doing it. Now, you may choose as a group to just have, like this one here, I can never come to meet you people in person unless I took a plane, right? But I like coming to this meeting because we're doing some stuff we don't do in other meetings. And obviously, I'm not a millennial. I feel a lot more comfortable here maybe than in a young person's meeting. This might actually help my sobriety more than going to the one meeting that I have in town here that's all young people. So I think we should just give people that want to recover or attempt to recover every opportunity to do that, which means offer them Zoom, offer them in person. They will choose for themselves which works best for them, depending on their personality and depending on current circumstances. So I think this is a really good tool. And I would just say that, it's not going anywhere. And as David mentioned, by hook or by crook, millennials are going to take over eventually anyway. So I think this is, they're always on their phones and that. This is something they're used to. Patrice's comment about people coming home for work. We had a guy on Sunday called in. His boss gave him the hour to sit down and go to a meeting. I mean, how convenient is that for him? The point is, it helped him. He went to a meeting, and that's what this is all about. We have to remember that. You know, whether I like Zoom or I like in person is irrelevant because everybody's different. We should just try to accommodate as many as possible.
Good on you, Kelly.
Right.
Thanks, man. I just wanted to come in on that, just to go over. It's just been mentioned also that I don't know if everyone realizes how lucky we are and how close it came, because really the endorsement that modem to modem meetings got, I think it was in the 4th edition of the big book, where in the foreword, and that, from what I've heard, and again, fact check me on this, but from what I heard, that little paragraph was the subject of a massive debate in terms of drafting that forward, and it came close to not being in. Now, if that hadn't have gone in, would we be able to have, or would we be having these kind of illegal Wild West Zoom meetings to do it? Because it wouldn't have been endorsed by AA, and that would have been classified as not being AA meetings either. So just food for thought on that, Joe.
I'll try to find, I've got a copy of the 1st edition, 4th edition, and I can show you what was taken out. But give me a moment, I'll get that,
sure,
and we can carry on with Maury.
Good on you. Maury.
Hey, David. Hey, Joe. Thanks for hosting the meeting today. My name's Maury. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. Thank you. I just wanted to jump in because a lot of this, some of this stuff was really pertinent. So like, I'm a Zoom baby. I was out of the phone's reach when you asked the profile of the number of years, and so I just hit a year. So I'm a Zoom baby, but I'm not in the. Thank you. But I'm not in the demographic of those 2 subsets that you just mentioned. But that's okay. So there, all kinds of people are coming in during this time. And I was thinking about it this morning. It's like, man, I want to go to a face-to-face meeting. And then I thought, wait, maybe I shouldn't, because I'm a caregiver. And if I get any kind of flu-like, COVID-like thing and then give it to the elder, it could kill her. So I'm here, I'm Zooming, and it's working. And you were talking about the AA and the how it was going in the 70s with the people with the poly substance issues and stuff like that. So I just wanted to chime in my 2 cents for any, and I missed the part if we have any newcomers, but if we do, my take is that yes, I am a polysubstance kind of person. And so I could go to AA, CA, NA, all these different A's, but why not just go to AA? So that's what I'm doing. So when I read the book or when I hear y'all talk, when the word alcohol is mentioned, I can change that word to all these different substances. And so the program works for me. I don't need to go to 3 different meetings. I can just go to an AA meeting. So I just wanted to share that with any newcomer that was trying to figure out what group to go to if they have a polysubstance issue. For my take is that it's easier to go to, not that AA is all encompassing, because I'm not talking about any kind of graphic nature of that other stuff when I go to an AA meeting, but that's okay. I don't have to. It's just the message is working when I substitute those other words for alcohol if I need to. So I just wanted to share that.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you.
Hey, Maury, just doing a quick ask you there, mate. Have you been to face-to-face meetings? I'm not sure whether you'd been in AA before you got sober this time, but have you been to face-to-face meetings and spoke about your other your polysubstance abuse?
That's what they called it in the 28-day place, David. So yeah,
I love it.
I went to a 28-day place in 1996. So my first exposure to the 12 steps was in April of 1996. Of course, the 28th day, they handed me my keys and my phone, and that was the end of those 28 days. Yeah. So, but then I tried again in Northern Arizona in 98. I did a geographical to what is considered a metaphysical center, and I thought that was going to help me. But really, I'm in the concrete jungle, and I'm doing way better than when I was in the metaphysical center, if you will. So yeah, I've tried it before in 96 and 98 to answer your question, but there was too much ego involved, and so it didn't work out.
Okay. Thanks, man. Good to
Thanks.
see you, Maury. Keep rocking. How about Jackie?
Thanks, David. Thanks, Joe. I'm Jackie Alcoholic. When I came in, there was some god-awful young person's leaflet as well, I seem to recall, which was even more tragic than the Newcomer Asks leaflet. And it was just like so designed by old people for like, and I was like, oh my God. Because I was in my 20s and everybody was old, and I was like, what's going on? But I was thinking, the whole thing of having separate leaflets is just naff, but that's another story. But I was thinking about that thing of like, with context of your band picture and stuff, and this idea that you had different stuff going on to stay sober together. And I always say to people, we're a broad church, you know, there's people who, you can do your primary purpose shit there, you can do your absolute God there, you can do whatever, you know, or you could do the kind of, I just go to meetings and hang around and do whatever. And that we are the space for all of those things. So I was thinking in terms of that kind of COVID meeting, Zoom meetings, excuse me, we're in a physical meeting today, where there's like 250 newcomers. There's no way that we've done things between us, some of the people in this room, where we've tried to implant people with lots of sobriety in those rooms to help them grow. But the reality is you can't be sponsoring 40, 50 people. You can't be doing those stuff. So if those people are engaging in the program in the same way, some of them are going to pick up sponsors and be going through the book in the more traditional way, but most aren't. So of those people who are engaged in the new Zoom era, we have to accept that our entire, fundamentally, that method of working, sorry, I've got COVID, as you might have gathered, alky to alky and going through the book is changing. And we need to accept that. I'm going to shut up before I choke. I hope we get.
Oh, but thanks so much for sharing.
Thanks, Jackie. Oh, Dale.
Hey, Dale, an alcoholic. Thank you for this meeting. It's just wonderful. I know when they're, I don't know, reading about, you know, changing the preamble and all that. And I thought, yeah, they should change it, but I, you know, didn't really know what was going on. It's hard to concentrate. And just a few weeks ago at this home group I'm in, they read the preamble and I went, oh my God, they read people. Like I hadn't even noticed it, that they changed it. And I don't know if anyone else did, you know, so it's just kind of nice how it changes. One thing, I will be grateful for men, of course, in the AA meet, because when I started AA was in 1985, and I joined a Maritime Labor Center union group. And there was me and two other women there and like 50 men. And so this, you know, we went on every Wednesday and the men would have their own step group and they called themselves the whiners and snivellers. And, you know, they'd throw baby bottles at each other and all that stuff. Anyway, they suggested at one of our meetings that a woman, we start our own step group, and they encouraged us to do that and bought us some 12-step books and all that. So, you know, we were men and women, but we all got along, and I'm always grateful for those men. And now I'm grateful for people. So thank you. That's it for me. Thank you so much for this.
Cheers, Dale. Good to see you. Marty in San Diego.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marty, alcoholic. Thanks for all that work you did on this, Joe. It's all very interesting. I'm not sure that I have any questions. I don't think I do, but there's a couple terms that are used frequently, conservative or liberal. And if you were to ask me which one I was, I wouldn't be able to say, because I'm not really sure what the definition is, although it's bandied about by people who have an opposing point of view, while the person that doesn't agree is obviously other than what I am.
Mhm.
And so we get into this, lack of operational definition of terms. And I mentioned it, I really don't care about it. How we make our own decisions. It's like, I've basically been taught how to do that in AA. I sobered up about the same time you did in the mid 70s. And up until the Zoom meetings, although if I look specifically at a lot of different areas, there would be a lot of differences. But the general tone and feeling of a meeting really hasn't changed. I'm here in Southern California. It's like we frequently read a portion of chapter 5 at every meeting. And, and I don't think that's something that's done so much in the UK. I don't know if it's new. I don't think it's ever been like that. But I want to go, before I forget about this, on the statistics. You showed a dramatic drop off on people coming into the program from 12-step calls.
Mhm.
And the level of the meetings or the membership in AA leveling off from maybe the early 90s. And if we're going to use statistics for something like this, that's a telling statistic. If there's not, if growth in AA, it's like you cannot say growth or lack of growth is caused by something else without looking at the effect of 12-step, actual 12-step calls on people. I know it was critical in my sobriety, and I made my first 12-step call when I was sober 10 days.
Yeah.
When I moved to San Diego, they said, and I was sober like 3 months when I moved here. I moved from Japan. They wouldn't let me sign up for 12-step work. I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, you have to be sober a year. I said, well, how do you stay sober the first year if you can't make 12-step calls? And so anyhow, they somehow or another continued to call me. So it was always a big part of my sobriety. And the other thing about these statistics is the fact that the average age is getting older and the average length of sobriety is getting longer. That's a telling stat that the program really works. I mean, that's proof in the pudding that the program is working. And if somebody wants to tweak it to make it better, it's very hard to see what the unintended consequences are going to be of making some changes. And I think most people AA recognize the traditions as the cornerstone for this. It's like the traditions are here. We're here today because of the 12 traditions. And if they weren't here, who knows where we would be? It's like you can go back and look at the Washingtonian group back in the 1800s that had similar success with alcoholics that we do,
Mhm.
but they got caught up, and I'm sure, Joe, you know all this stuff, but for other people who don't, the Washingtonians got caught up in business and politics, and they were actually very, very dominant in Washington, D.C. at one point. So, and then, of course, I don't know how they fell apart or when it fell apart, but it did fall apart. And so, we've got something here that works. And another thing about how we make changes in AA, I mean, I've been going to meetings. I've always gone to a lot of meetings. Probably the least amount of meetings I've gone to are 4 a week or so. And this whole issue with rewriting the preamble, and I go to groups that have GSRs and people going to meetings and all this stuff that's coming up. I never once heard about it until about a year ago, somebody read it at a meeting. And it's not because my head's buried in the sand, it's not. And to make a change like that, and to why was the change made? And I started looking in online, and I found what I think are answers, but they seemed totally irrelevant. I mean, it's like, yeah, we want to help a unique, very small percent, make it easier for somebody to come into AA. And maybe that does, maybe it doesn't. But the thing about anybody coming into AA is like, my experience in meetings is everybody's been welcomed, except for those who are abusive, or sometimes, you'd see this, you don't see it so much now, but people who were really passive aggressive or manic depressive and they were off their meds, they'd kind of get carried away when they speak at different meetings, and they'd be asked to either slow down or they'd cut it off short. But you know, the amount of change we really need in AA and how it takes place is, I'm kind of guessing that there are unique groups of people that are really finding the intricacies of how AA works and how changes are made, and are exploiting that for their own personal agenda. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I think, well, you know, the people I know, and you know, Southern California is not really a hotbed of conservatives. It's like, you know, there's a, I mean, San Diego is, but LA isn't. But, you know, again, that neither matters. What the people that I know in AA, when they look at what's happening and what's going on and how the meetings are run, they're not coming from a personal perspective. It's like, what is in the group's best interest? That particular unique group, not AA as a whole. And the meetings I've been to, for the most part, the group conscience rules the meeting. And this is starting to change in Zoom, because I see more and more changes being made on Zoom. And I go to a lot of Zoom meetings now, but to be a part of the group conscience, it's like, I don't know how to do it. I mean, I've asked people at meetings, they say, oh yeah, we'll have a meeting here, we'll let you know. And anyhow, I'm kind of getting off track here, but with that, I'm gonna keep quiet.
Good on you, Marty. Right, so we're sort of into the final bit of the meeting, so we've got a few hands raised here, Bob, and just ask the final. Just to remember, I want to get off and get some tea. It's dinner time here in the UK. So, Bob, over to you, mate.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for having me on. You know, my experience, and again, I just stick with it. There's been a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of great conversation. I'm coming up on my 10th year. I also have a millennium in my life who's coming up on his 10th year. Yeah. We came in separate times. Thank God I didn't have to fix them because I couldn't. But you know, I think we got to remember, no matter when you come into AA, I think anything that's changing or different, sometimes we resist that. As we get older, at least when I get older, I tend to get more set in my ways. And I think the AA that I came into 10 years ago is probably not the same one my grand sponsor came into 20, 30 years ago. And you know, I've been fortunate that I've been exposed to a lot of young people in AA. I've seen a lot of beautiful stuff, but I got to remember that I'm supposed to be making AA what it is and what I want it to be. And I'm blessed by having, here I'm in the East Coast, I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And there are so many meetings around here that if I don't like a certain meeting or how it's being operated or being run by that group conscience, I can attend another meeting. And I go to a home group, and I have a home group, and we do certain things, but you know, love and tolerance of others is my code. So when someone comes in and they're different, the only thing I find with Zoom that's a bit of I think a little bit of a concern is I was always taught, and I've always found it to be true, that the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting, for me, were very critical. That's how I learned to take these principles and put them into play with other people. And in Zoom, I don't get that opportunity with other people. When someone comes in, they're going through something, I don't get a chance to talk to them afterwards about what they had going on and what, you know, hey, are you got a sponsor? Are you working with somebody? Have you ever read the book? You want to sit down and read with me? And that's the only part I find missing in Zoom. Thank you very much. I love you guys.
Thanks.
Cheers, Bob. Jeb.
Yeah, thanks, David. My name is Jeb, and I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic addict. Oh, I said alcoholic first rather than addict alcoholic. I guess I wasn't paying attention. Thanks for that review of that pamphlet, which I haven't read in years. And it reminds me there's really good stuff in there. I guess I should give it to people more often. I try to give the PDF at the Zoom meetings, but I have no control over what anyone follows suggestions and reads something or not. But I'm looking back at what I needed and what I wanted when I came into AA, and it wasn't a pamphlet like that. It wasn't a bunch of old timers with 10, 20, 30, 40 years of sobriety guiding me and telling me what to do. I really needed to associate or learn to listen to people who were in my cohort group, or, you know, and we called them litter mates, you know, those who came in about the same time, and just finding ways to spend time with those guys and gals and to grow together and to trust one another. You know, and it's that whole idea of one alcoholic working with another alcoholic. I'm afraid that so much of what has developed in traditional or conventional AA is very impersonal. And in Zoom, it can be even more impersonal. And I don't know what the solution is, but I do know for my role with the newcomer is to be a listener and learn to encourage the sharing of another person. That's exactly what it says in Working with Others. That chapter, I don't know if anybody ever reads that chapter anymore, but it has some really good suggestions about how I need to behave myself when I'm working with what we call the prospect. And you know, there's some great pamphlets, but you know, I don't think pamphlets do it, period. I like the surveys that shows the trends and so forth. And I wonder how accurate any of those surveys can be, because we're not really set up to do an all member poll or thing in AA. And, but it's still interesting data. I'm interested in how I will be interested in another statistic as we move forward to see what the retention rate is like in secular AA. And I'm no longer calling the preamble for secular meetings agnostic and free thinkers, because that means I have to be either an agnostic or free thinker. I'm calling it the secular preamble, because that's what at the last couple of ICSA conventions that I went to or conferences, that's what they really talked about, is a preference for the word secular over the other things. And that's why it's called ICSA rather than something else. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I don't know if anybody in AA World Services listens to anything that comes from us as individuals or the group. I don't know if areas really listen to any of our concerns, but guess what? We can do the best we can by doing what we know what to do. And getting back to what I'm hoping I hear more of in AA across the board is sharing of experience, strength, and hope, not experience, strength, and belief, because that is a rampant problem, and especially in the Denver area and so forth. Is it, you know, believing things? I don't give a crap what you believe. That's just an opinion. And so, but anyway, I want to encourage people by listening to them and giving them hope. So today is day 15,920, still counting. Yep, I'm still breathing. Thanks.
Good to see you, Jeb. And what do you reckon, Joe? Should we finish off with the guy who celebrated 45 years this week? His name's John the Camera from Belfast. Come on, John.
Wouldn't want to lose any words of wisdom there.
I wasn't going to keep you from your dinner, Dave. But, yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's fascinating. Things change. When I came in AA, I thought right away it was very old-fashioned. The literature, especially in relation to gender, that's him. So I was always agnostic, and I said it at my first meeting. No one ever said anything to me. Now, they might have said something behind my back, but no one has ever. And when I would read chapter 5, I always changed him to they. And no one ever said anything to me. I just have to tell you that. No one ever said anything to me. But yeah, Zoom is brilliant. It's brought a great, I was saying last week or the week before, at our face-to-face meetings now, the majority of people are women, young women in, between the mid-20s, mid-40s, single parents, can get to a meeting in 5 minutes. Whereas before they had to hire a babysitter, get a bus, turn up, go home, and pay the babysitter. Now they can make a decision at 5 minutes to 8 and they're on a meeting at 8 o'clock. It's revolutionized Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I always say, I just say it as you don't have to believe anything in AA. The book says you don't have to believe it. And I say that at a meeting, hopefully for people who have no belief. But I do still feel that the majority of people who are coming in, that I meet at our group, they are believers. They are believers, the young people, but they have no problem with God. And even the word problem, it's just, anyway, I have no problem with God. But they seem to beyond it. I think the reason that AA's stagnated a bit, I think, maybe in the 90s, and that's why that recovery movement took over. You know, the orthodox getting back to the what is it exactly? How the first 100, it's only 55, but how the first 100 exactly how precisely how, that's the word they use. You're able to tell what they belong to in AA by words when they say precisely how the first 100 members sobered up, you know. And they're enthused about it. It's not my cup of tea, but I see them and they're enthused. They're all enthused about it. You know, I don't want to piss in their parade and say, well, you'll wise up eventually. One day you'll turn up, but you'll wind up an old fart like me. No, I'm not going to piss in their parade. Yeah. I go to I go to America, spend about 3 months a year in America, in Portland, Seattle. So I go to atheist meetings and Buddhist Recovery Network meetings. And the one thing, if it is what annoys me, I go to support them, but nearly everyone says this. When they're called to share, they tell you why AA doesn't work, okay? And I think, why do you need to tell me that? Why don't you just, you know, there was pubs I hated. I'd never go into the pub and say to that pub, I hate this pub. You know, you get a kick up the arse and be thrown out in your ear, get out your pub. What I'm saying is, you know, what Jackie says, I think we're a broad church, you know, and the idea that there's something wrong with AA because of this development change, and maybe it's not going fast enough for people like me, or maybe it's slow enough for people like me, but I think there's an organic change. It's just nature, no, not nature. What's the word? Anyway, whatever the word is whatever the word is that, yeah, broad church, and we will change. And, you know, in 100 years time, they'll be saying, which they hopefully about, I don't know what they'll be talking about, but anyway, I think someone said it is, I don't think anyone's paying any notice to people like us in a way, no, but I think there's some organic change that's just taking place, which is phenomenal, you know. And that idea, thank God, maybe you have the thing there, Joe, about if the words modem to modem weren't on there. I go to a Zoom meeting in Dublin. It's centered in Dublin. 62 people still go on the Zoom internationally, but it's not approved by AA in Dublin. But nobody says anything, you know. You can disapprove of it, but you're not going to change us, you know. So yeah, that's my tuppence worth, really. Yeah. For what it's worth.
Great. Thanks, John.
And David, if you can hold off just 1 second, here is the first edition forward. And this little area here that's been blacked out, this doesn't appear if you own a 4th edition big book that was printed after 2006. So they took out, fundamentally though, the difference between an electronic meeting and the home group around the corner is only one of format.
Wow. That is, yeah. Do we know why it was taken out, Joe?
Because they were offended at the idea that you could replace the face-to-face meeting with something on a computer.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Well, they were wrong.
But my point is, though, that modem to modem or face to face, AA speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity. I mean,
it's still.
I was going to say, thank God, but you know, thank goodness that they kept that in there. But no, but thank goodness they did, because, like John said, you know, there'd be these loads of illegal AA meetings going on, wouldn't there? So
they just couldn't stand it having equanimity, equalness, right? You know, it had to be.
I'm just worried about the word. We keep saying they, as if there's some they up there doing all of this. And I think there's the group which on all the they stuff is meaningless, I think.
Well, it was us. It was our general service conference.
Yeah, well, I get it, but I mean, our group can do whatever we like.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure.
Whatever I like, what our group, we could do whatever we like. We spend 3 hours discussing whether to change from plastic to polystyrene cups. We're an intelligent group. Maybe it was only 2 hours, 50 minutes. I don't know.
Right. So listen, thank you very much, everyone, for coming along. Thanks, Joe. Is there anything you want to finish? Is that what you finish us off? Is there anything you want to say before we
just
close
say
up?
hi, Jill. I think we can talk at another time about how to replicate some of the other aspects of face-to-face group, like the one-on-ones. Jeb and I go to a group that has a breakout room for like people who are new to AA. So at the end of the meeting, they can go and talk to a couple of people about, sort of have a, one-on-one chit chat where they wouldn't maybe speak up in the larger meeting. And maybe there are other things we can do to, make AA better on the Zoom experience. I'm sure the technology already exists. We just have to use our imagination.
Sounds good.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to stop recording. So see you next week. And thank you very much. Adios.